Jersey Ghana Radio, yet to so. Jersey.
Ẹ̀yẹ́yìn ẹ̀yẹ́yìn. Hello, Sadiq, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay. How are you doing?
I'm all right. How are you? Welcome back.
I'm doing well. Thank you. I'm still here. Right now, I'm in the
Oh,
studio in Ghana.
Oh, I thought you were back. I'm sorry.
No, I'm still here.
Hmm. I
All
hope
right.
all
So,
is
are you
well
ready to
down
go?
there.
Oh,
Yeah. When you let me know it's
okay.
ready, I will shoot up.
Okay. So let's play the our thing a little bit. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So you can go.
All right.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Go ahead.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today is Saturday, and as usual, we are going to be discussing something that is worth listening to um, for you as our listeners. And here at the studio, we are always looking for uh, topics that would make you a little better in knowing something more than you did before you joined us. Today is a unique day for us because uh, we are discussing something that is from our own, the one and only host, Kofi Ayim. Will be discussing one of his books, The Akans of Ghana, an aspect of past and present practices. So I believe we do have His Eminence Kofi Ayim with us online. Mr. Kofi
Yes,
Ayim,
yes.
I don't know if it will sound good to say welcome to Jersey Ghana Radio because you're already here, but it's very, very honoring to be discussing this marvelous piece you've written. Uh, before we delve into it, uh, would you want to be introduced any other way than just?
Well, yeah, you go ahead. Any way you want to. Oh, no, me, that's
Well,
fine.
all right. Our listeners already know you, so probably we'll just keep the introduction for today. But it suffices to say that you've written two marvelous books, that of Jakujo and this piece that delves deep into the ancient and contemporary practices of the Akan people. And you give us what most historians have tried to tell us, that African history did not begin with slavery. This is one of the pieces that would give our listeners uh, the missing link between ancient Africa and contemporary African societies, especially dealing with the Akan people. Thank you for taking your time and energy and all that you could afford to give us this piece of marvel. Welcome back to Jersey Ghana Radio.
Well, thank you, Sadiq.
Mm.
And hi to everyone, to your listeners for today.
Thank you very much. Uh, we will be joined by Professor Kwame Akono, who is running between meetings, but he's going to join us in this discussion. So, to start with, what motivated you? I know there could be a million reasons you would write this, but personally, tell us what motivated you to come up with a book like this.
Well, thank you, Siddiq, for giving me the opportunity to discuss the Akan of Ghana, aspects of past and present practices. Like you said, 1001 reasons that motivated me, but I can nail it down to just one thing. And it was a life changing experience. In 1992, I came in contact with someone now who is my teacher, my role model when it comes to tradition, and my senior brother, Ochiame Kwesi Ekufu. Ochiame Kwesi Ekufu is from Ekuapem, specifically Ekropon, and they have a very large family, the Ekufu family. He came here as part of an entourage led by the late Queen Mother of Ekuapem. They were invited by the city of East Orange in 1992, July. And so I was involved a little bit. But I went to the Deba, as we say in Ghana, for the entourage. And then I saw Ochiame Ekufu performing on talking drums. Not only was he playing the drums, because we've seen so many people playing the drums, but he was speaking with and to the drums. He was playing, he would play the portion and explain it, and he would repeat the play. And of course, if you are not a can, you can easily relate the manipulation and maneuvering of the sticks, sounding some words which he would later translate as a wow, this is marvelous. So after the show, I went to him and introduced him. I said, I want to be your friend because I am very much interested in what you just did. And the rest is history. And in fact, this particular book, The Akan of Ghana, he is one of the people that the book was dedicated to. Not only that, he helped a lot with the oral aspect of the book. Whilst I was doing the research, he was furnishing me with oral aspects. And what I would do is he would tell me something, and then I would go deep into research to attempt to confirm what he had told me. So, and I'm still learning. I'm still learning from him. That actually was the key that motivated me for 18 years to sit down and put on this 278-page book.
Wow. You know, this life is interesting. You never know where your motivations are going to come from. A talking drum, it could be a mango falling from a tree, it could be anything. But in the end, what is most important is how far this material has brought us in an appreciation for who we are and what we represent. Now, looking at what you've written, I see that the reference base is mainly in the ancient Egyptian civilization. Can you take us back? How do we connect?
Well, Siddiq, if you look at the references, which is at the back of the book, you will find out that so many of the references that are utilized are very, very ancient books, or maybe not modern books. You know, Josephus, Maspero, Herodotus, and our modern recent past ones, the dawn of civilization, Sheikh Anta Diop's destruction of black civilization is so many because I was searching for a missing link between the Akan people and ancient Egypt. And just to make a quick addition here, I did Akan because I'm an Akan. It's not that only the Akans are related, no, to the Asian people, but I only concentrated or focused on the Akan culture and tradition. And of course, I came across so many other people, non-Akans, who have some cultures that exist now that was being practiced in ancient Egypt. And I'll give you quick and I'll come back. In ancient Egypt, they used to practice, I've forgotten the name, it's in the book, but celebration of fire in the tropics of the transmigration of tropics into another phase, and they would dance in fire or jump across live fire. And I found out that in some parts of northern Ghana, they still do that thing. They jump and step in burning fire.
That is the Takai.
Okay. And I found out that they did that in Egypt. I found a lot of references, so many references about the Guan people and the Gan people. Guan, in the Equatorial area, and the Gan people. Like I said, that wasn't my area of concentration, so I did not probe further. But there is no doubt about the relationship between present-day Akan and ancient Egypt. What we have to understand is that ancient Egypt was like the America of today, the place that everybody wanted to be. So at one time, we had a gorgeous mosaic of so many groups there. But it is interesting that the people that eventually became the Akan people have been able to maintain some, in a modified form, some of these ancient customs. And the examples are in there that we can find in terms of names, in terms of human sacrifices. They used to kill people in ancient Egypt. They kill people like they used to kill when kings and queens die in past Akan practices for the same exact reason. And also in the Akan tradition, we have something called mpese, which is now we will say something like Rasta. They were practicing it in ancient Egypt. And you know what? The meaning is exactly the same. Mpese was practiced by the Akan people to distinguish, among other things, a young person, child, from supposedly from where he or she came from. When the mother or the parents were experiencing early child death. So they will go beyond and above to attempt to distinguish the child so that the supposed spirit or mother in the Netherlands, when she is ready to come and take the child back, would leave the child alone because the child is now disguised in the form of mpese. And in ancient Egypt, the meaning of that Horus locks, that's how they call it, Horus, Horus, that god, little god Horus, who became Osiris. The meaning of that dreadlock, the Horus lock, meant the reappearing one. The reappearing one, that which goes and comes back. And it is the same under the same principle that if your mother gives birth, the child dies after some few years, the mother gives birth again, the child dies, and you give birth again, reappearing, going on. So they have to attempt to modify the physical appearance of the child so that the spiritual mother there would cease calling the child back as her own. And that is also part of what we have, these Donko marks and so many other things. I saw when I was growing up these dreadlocks. They used to have coins, the old British coins, which were hollow. It has holes in them. In the dreadlocks, they put all these coins in there. And of course, we're not even talking about some of these Akan names that are still being, some of ancient Egyptian names that are still being used in present day Akan.
Mm. Well, so marvelously written out and so eloquently described. Now, this is the thing. Reading through the book, I have seen how the ancient Egyptian practices is connecting with the current or contemporary Akan practices. Should we say that the ancient Egyptians were more or less the royalty is mainly a blend of the West African or Sub-Saharan African kingdoms, or how do we relate? Is it that we were what do you call it? A kingdom within a larger kingdom, or a chiefdom within a kingdom, or are we just absorbing the ancient practices because we lived and saw it practiced by other people in ancient Egypt?
No, without doubt, the people who eventually became the Akan were originally in ancient Egypt. I mean, the influence is so much that you can't doubt it. Or they were part of the ancient Egyptians. Don't forget, Kush, the land of Kush, at one time was part of ancient Egypt. The Kushite people. And just to make a quick reference here, they were all blacks initially. I am not saying that. In fact, there is not one sentence in the book that came from my head, which is that the black aspect of it. I got it from Herodotus, the 5th century Greek historian. He said that until the 5th century, the ancient Egyptians were blacks. It's in his I have here. So the land of Kush at one time was part or was ruled by the Egyptians. What also happened is that Kush, for a number of years, Kush were able to conquer Egypt and ruled Egypt for some time, But if you compare the two, the Egyptian ruling of the land of Kush was longer than Kush ruling Egypt. So, if even the Akans were on the southern part of Egypt in the Kushite land, they would still have been influenced by the cultures. But you also have to ask the question, where did ancient Egyptians come from originally? They all came from the southern part and migrated up north. If you know or remember that civilization started along the banks of great rivers, you would understand what I meant. The people from southern part of Ghana tracing the Nile eventually ended up in ancient Egypt, not the other way around. Because of civilization, they were settling, and it was originally the Trap people, who Europeans call pygmies. They attempted to grow their civilization along the banks of the great river Nile. And the Nile is the only largest and longest river that flows from the southern part and empties itself into the Mediterranean in the northern part. All other big rivers flows from northward to southward or west or east, depending on which sea or ocean that they empty themselves from. So yes, the people around the southern fringes of ancient Egypt eventually became the founding fathers of the ancient Egypt and developed it. So when things became worse for them, naturally they look back south to try to go back to their ancestral land.
Wow. That makes a whole lot of sense, and it gives a very diverse perspective of things for me. And I know that it should be the same for our listeners. Um, Now, this is where it gets a little tricky. When you go into history, you kind of are bombarded with a whole lot of information, and where there is no chronology, you kind of get confused. You might want to help us here. What are the dates we're talking about? I see here somewhere around 950 AD, that is 950 BC, that the accounts had a striking similarity with ancient Egypt is without doubt and extends beyond cultures. In You made a reference to Gadina, Gadina's book that goes up to 950 BC by some alien race. Would you want to explain that? Give us some timeline.
Yes. Rephrase your question. You mentioned a book I didn't understand. I didn't hear you well. So if you can reframe that.
I don't know if the pronunciation of the name is correct, but it's Gardiner.
How do you spell it?
Gardiner.
Gar.
Diner.
Oh, okay. Diner. Gardner.
Gardiner. Okay.
Okay.
You,
What? Yes. He. In fact, he was a British, and he was knighted as a Sir. And now I'll quote what he said here. Sir Alan Gardner notes, and I quote: "Since it is generally agreed that the oldest population of Egypt was of African race, it might be expected that their language should be African too. And in fact, many affinities with Hamitic and in particular with Berber dialects have been found not only in vocabulary but also in verbal structure and the like." Unquote. And I'll come back again. Elsewhere, Gardner writes, and I quote: "Whatever may be said of the Northerners, that is ancient Egypt, it is safe to describe the dwellers in Upper Egypt as of essentially African stock, a character always retained despite alien influences brought to bear on them from time to time." Unquote. The timeline that you were saying, this is way yes. I'm not sure if I have exactly the BC. Do you have a time date? Then I can jump on.
yeah, actually, looking at page 34, and it makes reference to 950 BC.
Okay, and what does it say there? You read the book.
Yeah, it says that. Actually, let me just read it verbatim. It
Okay.
says, Gardiner tells us of throne usurpation circa BC 950 by some alien race whose ancestors had previously invaded and ruled Egypt. He writes, but they are not to be regarded as fresh invaders. The most plausible theory is that they were the descendants of captured prisoners of voluntary settlers who, like the Sheridan, had been granted land of their own on condition of their obligation to military service.
Yes.
Today, yeah,
Mhm. Yes. Okay. Were you? Did you want to continue or?
I think you can take it out from there.
Yeah, and yeah, like I said, yeah, today examples abound in Akan cultures where descendants of slaves and of persons who were subject to other forms of servitude who have usurped power and mounted thrones. And this was, we're talking about 950 BC. And the reason the timeline is so important here is the existence of the ancient Egyptian culture way back before even the Hyksos, Hyksos, I'm not sure, even appeared. What Gardner was trying to say that the people who came to rule Egypt, Egypt was, I think it's in one of the pages, I enumerated all those ethnic groups or races, if that's how the book described them, who eventually ruled Egypt, the last one being the Arabs. Okay, Egypt fell. It fell, and so was its culture. And it was ruled by so many different people, bringing in their cultures and their religions and their customs. Now, it was during those times, I think I gave the rough age somewhere in the book. It was during those times that Egypt was being attacked here and there, left and right, that some of them decided to look southward, okay, to look southward and migrate to safer lands. Let me see if I can get a Greek author who I quoted on that. Now, yeah, I think I have him here. Which page is that? Page 51. Horemheb, a.k.a. Ascensurus, the pharaoh with no royal blood, who came to the throne more than a decade after Akhenaten. Meanwhile, let me stop quickly and explain. Akhenaten is the name that present-day Akan referred to as Akhenaten. Akhenaten. And of course, for those who know languages, if you see how Akhenaten is written and is pronounced, they are different. The written word name is different from the pronunciation. If you pronounce it as it's written, it's Akhenaten. And so is Leicester, the English football club. If you see the way they write Leicester, you pronounce it as Leicester, but it's Leicester. So this is Akhenaten, but we believe that is where the Akan people got Akhenaten from. Okay, so you have to know about semantics of languages, and as a matter of fact, if you in Akan name structure, if you see how at least Europeans write Kakeri, and you want to pronounce it, they write it Keri Keri. But we say it's Kakeri, but we will still write it Keri Keri because that's what the European told us to write. I just wanted to make a point about Akhenaten. So let me go back and then you. Horemheb, the pharaoh with no royal blood, who came to the throne more than a decade after Akhenaten, was known to have persecuted and exiled believers and followers of the Aten deity. Now listen here, now quote. According to Greenberg, and I quote, Egyptian records identify the victims as the followers of the Aten. The Bible identifies them as the children of Israel, unquote. And the reference is to Alan Greenberg. All right? And let me repeat. According to Greenberg, quote, Egyptian records identify the victims as the followers of the Aten. The Bible identifies them as the children of Israel, Then I continue here. I said, this is profound because it places ancient people with common beliefs in different parts of the world. Now, what is Aten deity? The Aten deity was created by Amenhotep IV. And here I'm talking about culture, not what we know in a classroom. The Akan deity was created by Akhenaten IV. Now, it was Akhenaten who first, according to ancient Egyptian records, created the one and only God. That deity was called Aten. In the tree language, so Aten became very, very powerful. In fact, Akhenaten became very, 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 very unpopular because if you look at maybe Ghana, like 100 years or maybe 50 years back, take Akan Kingdom. Every town has its own deity or god or goddess, whichever way you want to call it. Every town, let's say Asante, every town of Asante will have its own deity. And the whole kingdom of Asante would have its one powerful deity. Further, within even every town, every family, every notable family will have its own deity. When Akhenaten came into power, he said there are too many deities in Egypt. I'm going to consolidate them all and create only one deity. So everybody will be beholden to that deity. And he named the deity Aten, which meant the glory of God. Now, it's interesting here now. Let me take my shirt off. The glory of God. In the true language of the Akan people, if you do something bad, or you sin, or do something unbecoming or untoward, you are told that Yebebu Aten, that is, you will be judged. And that judge was Aten. So you trying to get some link between that even name. In key word now they said Yebebu Aten. Aten Muda, Judgment Day. And that is even in the Tree Bible, Aten Muda. Now, Osman, what is his other name? An Egyptologist, I think he's still alive in England. He wrote a book which I also use. It's in the reference and explain Aten without knowing that the Akan people have a name called Aten or a noun called Aten. He said in ancient Hebrew language, they did not have a T in a word. Their T was equivalent to D like David. And their vowel Y was equivalent to O. So if you want to conjugate it to Hebrew language, attend the ATEN now become ADON, Adon. And if you conjugate it like mine with AI, then it becomes Adonai. And we all know what Adonai is. So Adonai comes from Aten. Are you following me?
Yep.
Okay. So it's not surprising that Greenberg tells us here that, and I quote again, Egyptian records identify the victims as the followers of the Aten. The Bible identifies them as the children of Israel. Who are these people that Greenberg is talking about? The followers of Aten were persecuted in ancient Egypt. In fact, Aten's name had virtually been erased completely from the records of ancient Egypt until archaeologists found out some years back. When Akhenaten IV decided to consolidate all these gods for only one God, there was a religious revolution. Like I was giving an example of various. So we are in Ashanti. Ashanti Mampo has his own God with priests and priestesses. Bekwai has his own God. You name it. Efijasi has his own God. All these Ashanti towns have it. Then a king comes like Otunfo. He said, you know what? Efijasi God, Ashanti Mampo God, all these gods, you do away with all these gods. We are going to have only one God. There was religious revolution. Why? Because now, see, apart from the Pharaohic Egypt, the people that constitute the Pharaoh and his immediate people, the priests were the most important and powerful organization in Egypt, the priesthood. Now we are going to do away with them. First, we are going to take their power from them and probably take their daily bread from them. So they rose against Akhenaten, and Akhenaten was chased away. Not only him, he was chased away with his followers, and some came south. Looking back to the ancestral route, you remember I mentioned about Cushite and how the people just migrated along the valleys of the Nile and then eventually founded ancient Egypt. So they were looking for. Some went towards the Palestine way because they were living in Egypt. When Akhenaten eventually was being chased, said, okay, well, we are believers in Aten, and if you won't, then we are going. And Sadiq, I did not make this thing up. The archaeological things are there, so, and all the references are there at the back of the book. Now, so we know that Aten is Adonai. And Greenberg said that Egyptian records identify the victims as the followers of Aten, and the Bible identifies them as the children of Israel. And I gave the quote there, an exact page in Greenberg's book. So, when the people left there, of course, those who came down south, they traveled and settled along Western Sudan area, that vast area. The others that went into Palestine, they also went. Okay. But the ones who settled in southern part of Egypt, southeast, all across, eventually founded the Sudan empires, Ghana Empire, Mali Empire, Songhai Empire. Now, when the last of those three powerful empires was defeated by Pasha from this Islamic Arab from Morocco, they looked further down, coming down south. Okay? And that eventually landed the people we call Akan right where they are in the forest belt. And one thing about Aten, whilst we are on it, according to renderings of archaeological, these are pictorial, so it can be seen. The Aten deity was worshipped 3 times, morning, afternoon, and evening. And the Aten deity was an aspect of the sun, S-U-N. And when it was being worshipped, every time it was being worshipped, and you see the drawings in the books, they stretch their palms, and you see rays from the sun coming direct into their palms, which means the power of the energy of the sun animates the human body through the palms. And the pictures are there. They outstretch, they spread their 2 hands left and right, and you see the rays from the sun reaching the outstretched arms of the worshippers that is animating them. So the Aten was actually an aspect of the sun, S-U-N. Okay, I'm done for now.
Oh, beautiful. I mean, I had to just keep quiet and listen to you because this is more than just a marvelous piece of what do you call it, information. It's beautiful. It will come as a surprise to many people that we have a link to what the Bible, the Old Testament, refers to as the 12 tribes of Israel. And
Mm-hmm.
yet, still, when we want to make any reference to who these people are, we look up north and east. We don't see ourselves connected. But thank you for brilliantly giving us that link. What do we make of those who are actually referring to themselves as the 12 tribes then?
Well,
I know it's not in your book.
before we go there, let me just make something that I almost forgot about the linkages. When I was doing this work, I also try to, to find out about name structures, that exist currently in the world. But I will look and then come back to Akan people, and still with this name Akan, okay. And you said we look and we don't even see. It's all around us. There is nothing significant being part of, to me, as part of the ancient Egyptians. So what? But history must be told. And you see, this particular book, if you are not an African, it will be exceedingly difficult to come out of such a book. Because if you're an African of a particular ethnic group, you know your culture, you know the doings and so on and so forth. You'll be able to marry whatever maybe you are reading, whether there is correlation. And I'll just give just one example that we come to these 12 tribes. You see the name Aten. We have so many Akan names with that, but we have eyes we don't see. A name like Boa Aten, which is help Aten, that's where we have Boa Ten. And one big name, Adonten, and like we explained, Adonten is like double because the Aten, when you conjugate it to ancient Hebrew language, is Adon. So we have Adonten. We have Nyanten, Nyaneno, sleeping, wake him up. Where is Aten now? And we are being persecuted. Nyan Aten, Ja Aten, Jaten, leave him, leave Aten alone. Esubon Aten. We have these names buried within us. It's just like except that we just can't apply our minds to it. So I was looking at other cultures to see if there are some derivatives in these names, but I didn't. That doesn't mean that they do not exist. Maybe I did not do a very good job to go into details of other cultures. I look on the surface. But like I said, the ancient Egyptian thing was not actually limited to Akan people because their trait was Hamitic. It was Hamitic throughout Africa. Okay, I think you have some guests there. Maybe you want them to chime in.
Yeah, we have
great guests already.
Professor Small
there, and someone has MN with my number one. I don't know. So maybe you want to let them come in.
Definitely. Welcome, Professor Small. I'm not sure who the other number is.
Thank you.
Thank you. As the 4154 number, and then there is Kosiade has the last 4 digits 4154. He's been on for a while. He has indicated that he would like to do something on the ceremonials. And then there is someone with my number is MN, and there is no name, no where it is from. So maybe you want to give them chance. You are the host. It's up to you.
Definitely. Let's first go to the 4154 number, and after that we'll go to Professor Smalls.
No, so you call them. I don't. You invite them.
What? Who is the one with the 4154? You said is that Mr. Ade?
I'm not sure. So maybe you can move on to the other person. Maybe the person just dialing and maybe the phone is somewhere. I'm not sure.
That is Mr. Kwesiade. Mr. Kwesiade, are you there?
Yeah, that's a Kwesiade's number. So, but you can go ahead.
Definitely. Let's move on to Professor Small. Welcome, Professor James Small. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Yes, sir. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be on. I've read this extraordinary book, and I've been walking in and out of the Akan world for some 30-plus years. And Brother Kofi has done an extraordinary job in capturing the culture of our people. And this book needs to be in the schools. It needs to be in the schools across Ghana.
I agree.
And so, I'm one who believes that the culture represents the wisdom of the ancestors. And we know in our tradition you do nothing significant without pouring a libation to the ancestors. You always make gesture to the Almighty God first, but then you pour to the ancestors to thank them, to ask their blessing, to inquire of them other things. And so when we see what we call culture, people, I don't think someone understand that word. Culture come from to cultivate. And the question becomes, what is it you're trying to cultivate? Trying to cultivate the wisdom of your ancestors that has been proven to be effective for living a good life. You see? And so you captured so much, Brother Ayin, in this book on the different aspects of the culture and the relationship. As we talk for so long about the balkanization of the continent of Africa by the colonialists, all these borders and things now that make us lock ourselves into little geographical regions, that isn't always historically the reality. We moved all over that continent over centuries and centuries. Someone who lives in Ghana now may be somewhere down by Congo 500 years from now, because the needs and the aspirations of whether they were pastoral people or agricultural people or fishing people determined where they moved. Also, seasonal migration for food, for farming, for herding, all of the different things, plus just the intercontinental travel we did by the rivers and waters way from West Africa to East Africa, from Central Africa to North Africa. And the culture, there's a greater, and I think Sheikh Anta Diop talked about it, there's a greater cultural unity in Africa than we know. We've allowed the colonizers to balkanize our culture. So we can go, the Igbo is here, the Yoruba is there, and the Akan is here, and the Ewe is here. But when you look, there's a relationship genetically between all these people, and there's relationships culturally between all these people. They're borrowing things from one another, and they're supplanting themselves in different regions, and over time expanding into new expressions of the same cultural foundation. And so you've captured the Akan in all of their dimensions. So I'm always recommending the book, by the way. Anytime someone asks me something to read on
Professor Small, sorry to cut you, but you mentioned something, the book being in schools, not because I wrote it, but with all due respect. I was in Ghana in January and made contact with the Ministry of Education, gave them book officially, filled out, pay the official rate for book review, and they sent us a letter that respectively declined for the book to be used in schools, but they recommended that it could be good in libraries and for personal use, but not for schools. I just wanted to set the record straight.
Well, there's one thing we may consider, because I know we have that problem over here in America. There is a curricular format that schools, I don't know whether it's the same in Ghana, require in terms of the written protocol. The information may not have to change, but the written protocol may have to change in order to put in the quizzes at the end of the chapters, summary at the end of the chapters, and those sort of things that make it easy for the students, so that they can be measured. So you may want to just consider looking at that kind of formatting. I remember Lefty Asante, when they did that African American history, had a lot of problems, and they changed it to fit the curricular format. So find out what the curricular format is for the Ghana textbook, and then maybe that kind of adjustment would make a big difference.
Okay, I'll seek advice and then see how we move on there.
Thank you very much, Professor James Small. I see we have a couple of callers. Let's go to number ending in 7144, calling from Helden, New Jersey.
Yeah, 7144. This is Openia Kosiade. I am very happy that you've given Kofi a chance to discuss this book. And before I come forth with my presentation, I would like, most especially the Africans in the diaspora, and I guess I could say the African Americans, to really take a very serious look at this book, because I think it gives a lot of informed information about who we are as a people and how we have all progressed to this stage. And especially my Ghanaian brothers and sisters who are listening, I know, sorry to use this, we don't like to read a lot. We like to listen into the music and a whole bunch of other stuff. But I think this is a very good read, the Akan of Ghana, because it's a wealth of information on that. And on that note, I'd like to give a big shout out to Kofi. Now, what I really like to talk about, or at least I like Kofi to elaborate more so people can understand, because most often not, when the African people gather around and you mention libation, oh, no, it's a foreign thing. We are Christians. Therefore, we seek a pastor to pray. And when I was reading this book, I noticed that libation actually pretty much came out of the Akan culture, because I went and did a little research, and I found that pretty much about 59 or 35, at least, that I found in the book. And I went to the Bible and I found that starting from Exodus to Leviticus to Numbers, and they're doing exactly the same thing the Akan people do today, and it seems to be an abomination. So I will hope Kofi can elaborate so our listeners can learn something from it. And that's my take on that.
Yeah, Akwasi, thank you so much for bringing this thing up. Unlike, this is a little bit funny, but I'll say it. Unlike Christian prayers, when libations are being offered, you don't close your eyes. You open the eyes. And there is a joke that it was the Greeks who actually, in trying to Christianize the Italians and other people, asked them to close their eyes and pray like for 3 hours. By the time they open their eyes, all their things are gone. they were still. I've been asking my Christian brothers. I said, "Why do you close your eyes when praying?" And most of them will say, "Well, for concentration. You don't want things to disturb." I said, "But all these cars passing by, you close your eyes, but the cars are disturbing you." Anyway, I've never had any concrete and convincing evidence. But let me just read something here, which is on page 155. This was the sacred, symbolic way of transferring requests to the spiritual Almighty God. The Right Reverend Dr. Peter Kwesi-Sapon says that libation, and I quote, has a religious character expressing belief in God, in the various gods, and in the ancestors. In chapter 4 of his book, he points out that in the Revised Standard Version of the Christian Bible, the terms, and I quote, libation, libations, drink offerings, and drink offering occur 67 times.
He's absolutely right.
And in the James. So you see, it's kind of sad though. And I'll tell you one thing also. I think, because you know, I think there is a town in Asante called Apatrapa. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Maybe 15 or 16 years ago, at that time, we had a newspaper called Asenta, and I was the cultural, columnist there. The king came here with a delegation, and they came to East Orange, New Jersey, in a church. I was covering for the newspaper, Asenta, and Nana. Oh my God, was it Nana? Nana Adumberia, may his soul rest in peace. He was with them. So when the pastor of the church was an African American, finished, all the introductions and all this, welcoming them and and everything was settled, he asked Nana Adumberia, he said, "But where is the libation in the church?" And Nana Adumberia looked at the pastor with some eye like, "What are you talking about?" The pastor said, "Yes, are you not going to do libation?" Nana Adumberia did the libation in church, but later he told the pastor that he was so surprised and he's never heard anything, because it will never happen in any Ghanaian church, whether it's in Ghana or here. See, for the African, and Professor Small will enlighten us if I'm wrong, our culture and our religion are buried in one another. They are buried in one another. And if the Bible itself, the Christian Bible, talks about libation, I remember I did write libation as an article. I was able to quote some text like what he was saying, where David will pour out the water to the Lord. So, it is, to me, it is just lack of understanding and people trying to twist and turn the Bible in their own way. Because we have to understand that for the Europeans, which is being carried on by Africans, black Africans now, anything black is evil and anything white is divine, including the clothes that we wear.
Even though that is the exact opposite.
Wasn't it recently when Ghana's ace musician Ephraim Amu, who was trained at the Presbyterian Training College, who was being trained as a theologian, he put on kente clothes to church during the time of the British people, and he was suspended because he preached in kente with kente on. Why? Because the translation or interpretation was that it was tradition and therefore evil. Now see what kente is doing now. So, and most of our religious leaders have not been doing the right thing in re-educating the people. It's just that simple. And because you're right. When Kwame Nkrumah was in power...
Kofi,
yes.
let me read a few pieces just to substantiate what our brother Kwesi
Yes, please,
said.
go ahead.
So, because, I got my computer in front of me. So I just went to look up libation in the Bible. And it appears in the Bible 35 times. Genesis 35. Jacob set up a pillar in the place where he had spoken with him, a pillar of stone, and he poured out a drink offering to it. He also poured oil on it. Exodus 29:40. And a tenth deal of fine flour mixed with beaten oil, a fourth part of hin, and a libation is poured to the Lord. Exodus 29:41. And the second lamb, though thou prepared between evening, according to the presence of the morning, and according to its libation. Leviticus is grain, this is the last one, is grain offering shall then be 2/10 of an ephah, and the flour mixed with oil, and offering to the fire of the Lord, for a soothing aroma with his drink offering, and a fourth of the hind of wine. So all through the Bible, 35 times, libation precisely is mentioned to the Lord.
Well,
so.
Oh, and Sadiq, just to add on more, we quoted all from the Old Testament, and guess what?
Mm-hmm.
In Philippians, which happens to be the New Testament, libation is also referenced there. So at least we have to let our sisters and brothers know that even during Christ's time, libation was.
Numbers, Deuteronomy, Kings, Isaiah, Ezekiel, Joel, and Philippians. But in Philippians 2:17, but if also I am poured out as a libation on the sacrifice and ministration of your faith, I rejoice in common with you all. That's Philippians 2:17.
Wow.
And you can find this in the Bible, and the Bible Thesaurus. You can find all of it.
Wow.
May I make a comment before you go, Bubba? Just you know, one of my teachers was an old man. God bless his soul, and may he rest in peace. From Kumasi, you knew him as Bafo Okotu. He was the linguist to Atumfo Pokawari, and he was the one that taught me libation. You know?
Wow.
And the one thing he always remind me, the first thing you do when you raise that water, or you raise that, because we used to like to do water here in America till we got introduced to snaps in Ghana. And he explained, when you hold it up, that first gesture before any water hit the ground is to the Almighty God.
Yes.
That first gesture. And then you pour to the ancestors. You go to Asasiya, then to the ancestors. So these things, and we know, there's a brother, Kofi, you know his name. He says his book is called The Akans Who Wrote the Bible. Or
Yes.
Wrote the Bible.
Yes.
A book you can hardly find now. Sometimes it costs hundreds of dollars when you try to get it.
Yes.
But that book is worth being recommended.
$9. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
so that's another good book that will lead people to understand when the Akans talk about their migration from the east to the west. Mm-hmm. I did a lecture not too long ago on the history of Christianity in Africa before the transatlantic slave trade. So I revised the history of Christianity in Africa before the birth of the Catholic Church. And remember, the Protestant churches that we all use is given birth to 500 years after the founding of the Catholic Church by the Catholic Church. But the Catholic Church is given birth to 500 years after Christianity by the African Church. That's in Nubia and Ethiopia. It will manifest later as a Coptic church, but it's the Church of Nubia and Ethiopia that manifests as the Coptic Church, give birth to the Byzantine Orthodox Church, and thus the Catholic Church. And then birth is given after Luther's Inquisition in the 1500s to the Protestant churches. So we need to know these histories. And what we're dealing with when we're looking at Christianity coming back into Africa is cultural colonialism and cultural imperialism being imposed on an African spiritual system that already have its structure. And then the African spiritual system now gets demeaned by the European cultural system, which has imposed itself. I hope that made sense.
People are going to be angry with me now.
But history, history is the best to reward all research. I taught religion I taught comparative religion for 18 years. Kwame, that's how you met me up in Black Studies. I was teaching comparative religion. That was my studies. My doctorate is in theology. Most people don't know that. I don't tell them too much because they'll jump on me, you see.
Professor James Ball,
Yes.
we do have Dr. Sami Kabofo on the line. I think he wants to chime in. He happens also to be one of our prominent,
Hello.
what do you call it, hosts. Hello. Is that Dr. Sami? Hello?
Yeah, I don't think he's in there. Sadiq, there's someone with MN, no phone number. Maybe the person should come on. All what is there is my number 1, and it has MN on there.
Yeah.
I don't know, but the person has been quiet.
Yeah, and the person has joined in from the beginning.
Yeah. And he or she is not speaking up. And also you have this 4154. Also, maybe you want to invite them for their comments before you continue?
Yeah, 4154, I believe, is Akwesia there.
No, that was not Akwesi. Akwesi left because Akwesi's number. Yes, I thought it was the 4154, but it's not. The number that he left. Yeah, the person is speaking up now.
Yeah, hello.
Coffee?
Yes.
Yes.
How are you? This is Sophie Seguida.
Oh, okay.
Hello.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Yes. I was not sure what the program is. I was a little bit busy here and I was on mute. It is overwhelming and it's a very important book. And would you please read the title of the book for all of us? Perhaps to get it. Yes.
Sadiq, you want to read it?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay. The book is titled The Akan of Ghana, Aspects of Past and Present Practices. But it is easier if you go on Amazon.com and you type my name, Kofi Ayim. The last name is Ayim. The first name is Kofi, Kofi Ayim. You see that? So they are available on Amazon.
Thank you. That's wonderful. This is very educational, and I think I'm learning from it. Hopefully, we're going to have a different section also to continue this education. Just to add on what Brother Small said, there's a lot of noise I hear.
Someone just came on the line with the last 4 digits 2642, and there's a lot of background noise.
The emergence of Christianity in Africa, I think it's not in the 18th century as most people think. Those missionaries who went to Africa in the name of spreading Christianity, but they were assessing in how to loot Africa or to have the essence of colonization in Africa. However, Christianity, I think, has emerged as Professor Small said earlier days, perhaps even before Christ. Whether it's some say legend, some say it's true. The issue of traveling to King Solomon to salute by Queen Sheba. Queen Sheba was the Queen of Ethiopia that used to rule the vast areas of land from Puntland to all the way to South Arabia, not Saudi Arabia, South Arabia, that includes Mecca and Medina, that goes all the way to Nubia. The Nubia is part of like South Sudan and Ethiopia, as you know, but it extends to even the Faros area. Faros used to come out of Ethiopia. This is another issue. They are black. True, they are. But the Christianity has started in Ethiopia officially during King Izana on the 4th century, but throughout the country it started, it goes way back to King Solomon, the idea of believing in one God, and then through also trade and exchange of people traveling and so forth. They had Christianity introduced as far as the 1st century AD. Because as Professor Small said as well, during the 1st century, Ethiopia has also a kingdom called Aksum. At the time where also Byzantine Empire was still in place, they were competing with them by minting their own coins. So Christianity has been really, it goes way back to Africa. It's not what, as they tell us, the Europeans, only that it came to, Africa through prior to colonization, through the missionaries and so forth. I thank you.
Oh, thank you, sister. That was beautifully said. You know the Coptic church, the one that was bombed some months back in Cairo? In that church, all of the paintings of Christ, of his mother, of Mary's mother, his grandmother, of his disciples, they're all painted as African. And the paintings are older than the Vatican. Hey? And you can find them. So somebody has misrepresented something here. So if the pre-Catholic paintings of the Christ and the painting of his disciples, of his mother, God bless her, and her mother, are all Africans, and you can see them today. You can go to Cairo today and go in the church and see that.
Thank you very much, Professor Small. We do have someone with the last 4 digits, 2642. I believe that should be Dr. Sami Kabofo. If you can hear me, would you want to chime in?
Yes, sir, I'm right here. I'm sorry I'm joining you later. I was really overtaken here.
You're welcome, sir. And before you go on, let me mention that this is Mambo's father, so we are honored to have you here. You can go ahead and make your contribution.
I'm very sorry that I missed the last one because I'm here in a funeral reception, and just about the time I joined in, they called me back out there to come pray, and so I actually missed everything. Can you give me a brief summary of what we're talking about? Because I missed the contributions of the others.
No problem. So far, we've discussed the Akan of Ghana, an aspect of past and present practices, written by our host, Kofi Ayim, who we are interviewing now. But throughout the conversation, we've talked about the linkages between ancient Egypt and the present day Southern or Sub-Saharan African people. And we've tried to link the contemporary Africans with the ancient narration in the Bible and a couple of other things. So that is how far we've come. If you want to chime in on any of that, you can do that now.
Well, Sadiq, the one reason why he came on actually was because we're discussing libation libation in the African context as well as in the biblical context. Professor Small made some pretty interesting comments in regards to how many times libation appears in the Bible and exactly how it was interpreted, and how sometimes I think Kofi also mentioned something about how he attended a ceremony one time or a church event where they invited one of the nanas from Ghana to come through, and and the preacher was asking him why he didn't do libation. I think that's the context that he was coming in on.
All right. Thank you, Mambo.
Thank you very much. In a nutshell, I think the African origin has in mind the Creator God who created all of us. We believe that man did not just evolve, God created man. And man has the idea of God and how to honor God. The only difference between the Bible and the African traditional libation is that the Africans who have not had any touch with the study of God's word have the idea that there is God and we have to give a portion of what we're eating to God. And that's why they do libation. They actually pour down the part of the drink they are going to drink and say, we are giving this to our forefathers, we are giving this to our God. Biblically, we say our God, it's not on the floor for us to pour down some wine, but we do appreciate and acknowledge His presence, and His share should not be poured down on the ground, but the thanks that we offer to Him, the prayers that we make to Him, the appreciation, the simple fact that we realize that He enabled us to have the food that we have and we're able to eat. Once we acknowledge Him, He blesses it and it's free for us to take. Some people go more than just that. You say, well, here is a situation in the family that we have to handle, and the best way to handle it is to offer libation to our forefathers. It is true. There's something I was discussing with a friend this week. He said, your parents need food. You have to give them food. They actually appreciate that food when they are living because they can eat. But when they die, they cannot share in the things that you do, no matter what you do. And I usually give an example, one of them, which I use today. We can bury somebody in a golden coffin. It will do that person no good. But if the person was taken care of while he was alive and was able to have medication while he was sick, was able to have food while he needed food, that it's a blessing by itself that will stay with you, not forget about them and only come to celebrate when they are dead and gone. That's a summary of what I can say for now.
Thank you very much, Doc. We also do have someone with the last four ending 7569. If
hi,
you want
that's
to
me.
chime in. Yeah, you can chime in.
Ben Alexander, calling from New York City. And Kofi, in your book, you talk about a number of customs of the traditional Akan, which would probably not be sustainable in present day. One in particular, you talk about how in the traditional Akan years back, it was usual for the father not to have close relations with sons and daughters. That motherhood was considerably more important than fatherhood, which strikes me as an example of a custom that I'm sure isn't the case now. So I wanted to ask you in general, when it comes to things like family relations, where does cultural change fit in with the sustaining of Akan identity and the sustaining of those Akan customs that are sustainable?
I did not understand the question well, but were you referring to the sustainability of the matrilineal system in modern Akan concept?
Yes, but I was also referring to the part of the book where you say that that it was customary in the past for fathers not to play a strong role as fathers.
Yes,
in the lives of children.
I get you. Well,
okay.
First, let me go to what I came in first. The matrilineal concept of Akan still exists, especially in the royalty. It still exists amongst the royalties, like contemporary Akan in Ghana now. If, let's say, my father were to be a king and he dies, I cannot be made to succeed him as a king. It's still there in the royalty and in families. However, culture is dynamic, and fathers are now playing more important role in the bringing and upkeeping of their sons. In the past, it used to be that fathers would pay very little attention to their own sons because they knew that the sons did not belong, into quotes, to them. But rather, fathers would take care of their nephews. And by nephew, the kind of definition is just only one: the son of your sister. A man's sister's son is your nephew. Fathers would rather take care of their nephews more than their own children. And in fact, it plays some key role in the slave trade when it comes to Akwemu. Akwemu people would use their sons as sureties for the Europeans to hold European factors, interest, to borrow them money or guns and so on and so forth, and use their son as collateral security. Give it to the Europeans till they pay up. But it took a long time for the Europeans to find out that once these, especially the kings, once they bring their children as security and they get the guns or loan or borrow, they did not care to come and pay back and take their sons back. It took them a while for them to know that the kings did not really care much about their sons than their nephews. So the Europeans wisen up and refused to take the sons of the kings as collateral. They would demand rather the nephews. And with the nephews, the kings will quickly find money or whatever to go retrieve their royals. It is changed now. Men are more involved in upbringing of their sons now than it used to be. But the system is still there. The matrilineal concept is still there. I don't know whether that answers your question fully.
And I'm also wondering, Kofi, as immigrants in the United States, are there institutions, or are there social institutions that keep particular groups like the Akan and the Ga together while as immigrants in the United States?
Oh yes, absolutely. In fact, in amongst the Ghanaians, we have so many of these ethnic groups in New York, New Jersey, nations, like you said, the Ghana people, the Akan people, the Gumba people, but they have also an umbrella organization which usually comprises of two top people of all these ethnic groups, and they have come together to form an umbrella organization of all these Ghanaian ethnic groups. In New York, they call them Nkoga. In New Jersey, they call them Koga, Council of Ghanaian Association. And they have some in Maryland, DC area, Texas area, California, yes. So they serve as umbrella for the common interest of the Ghanaians, irrespective of ethnicity. Did I make myself clear a little bit?
Yeah. And congratulations on your book.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
All right. Now let's go to Reverend Lucata or Lucato.
Yes. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes. You're loud and clear.
Yes. Good afternoon. Well, it's a blessing to be able to be here with you all and to listen in on the program. I have had the opportunity to read Brother Kofi's book. Brother Kofi is a member of our church, First Presbyterian Church of Irvington, New Jersey. And when the previous caller asked about are there any institutions that are continuing to preserve even the culture of the Akan people, or the certainly our church, which is about 90% African immigrant, majority from Ghana, is one of those places where we're finding the blessing and the challenge of the preservation of the history and the culture of the Akan people. It's also one of those places where we're finding the real intersection of the culture with Christianity, and with some of the legacies and the challenges that Dr. Smalls mentioned in terms of colonialism and imperialism and Constantinian Christianity and how that has manifested within history and amongst African people. But I just want to thank Brother Kofi for this text. It is one of the first books that I really focused in on once I was installed here as the pastor, and it has been very important in helping me to understand many of the things that I see, many of the things that I hear, many of the things that I experience within the context of this church community, which is abundant with Akan people. It has also made an important link, as we've talked about these linkages between African traditions and those traditions of the Bible. And I think that we should even be careful about framing the discussion in that way, because this book supports the argument, as well as other books such as the Africans Who Wrote the Bible by Dr. Darkwa is one of the books that have also been mentioned today. The culture, much of the culture of the Bible is African culture. What we are reading about is African culture. We don't understand it as such. It has been twisted and perverted by those who have sought to steal Christianity away from African people and to resend it as a tool of imperialism and colonialism. But clearly, whether it be from the libations, even to, Brother Kofi has some important references to the sacrament of communion, which we observe in the Christian church. Most churches may do it on the first Sunday of the month, but seeing the connection between what we celebrate and what is the New Testament, what we see in the Gospels with the Synoptic Gospels with Jesus and the breaking of the bread and the drinking from the cup, what we see that Paul talks about in his letter to the Corinthian church, that we find very deep connections and not just linkages, but these are expressions of African culture. And so I would encourage all of those who are seeking to understand Christianity better to seek to read Brother Kofi's book and to continue their research because as we better understand African culture, we better understand the faith that we have embraced. And it is a challenge, it is a challenge to convince many who have been taught and trained to understand Christianity as something very different than an African system of faith and culture. And so often we have to encourage people to forget much of what they have learned and learn much of what they have forgotten. And I think that Brother Kofi's book does a phenomenal job in contributing to the body of research that helps us to see those connections and in a practical way for those of us who are working on the intersection, working with African people and making the connections between African and African Americans. There's a whole different type of even re-Africanization and re-teaching that needs to be done for African American people as well, even those who have commitments to African-centered thought, where we can go deeper. We can see much more specific connections and the ways in which we can authentically be both African and Christian.
Oh, thank you very much, Reverend. We do have someone with the last 49000. If you want to chime in, but before you do that, I want to acknowledge the fact that we have Professor Kwame Akan on the line. I know at some point he might want to jump in. So
actually, that's me. That's me, Sadiq. I'm on.
Oh, welcome, Prof.
How are you doing?
I'm all right. Yourself?
Not too bad at all. Sorry I came in late. I was engaged elsewhere.
That's understood.
Yeah, so, Kofi, how are you doing?
I'm fine. Thank God.
Wonderful.
And I'm glad my pastor says I go to church. So
why is that important to you? It's not a bad thing, but I just wanted to pull your legs for a minute. But anyway, if I came in at the tail end, but just so our listeners also would know that Kofi's book won an award at the New York African Studies Association last year, 2016, at a conference that was held at Columbia. Did you mention that already, Kofi?
No, I didn't.
Okay, well, I'm making it out there just to let you know the value and quality of your work, and much admired by your peers. I wanted you to tell us a little more about the role of the talking drums, because you make reference to that in your book.
Yes. We treated it into a little bit details. Until the advent of Europeans or wireless or internet, whatever, Africans, not only Akans, Africans, including, of course, Akans, had a way to relay messages and convey messages to their people. And Akans were no exception. Akans will utilize talking drums and horns to warn people. For example, if there is outbreak of fire, there was you couldn't call 911, and no fire trucks would be running, but a drummer would drum phrases that those who knew the drum language would understand. But what happened was that they would all the time drum on a hilly part of a town or village, because the drum would then be able to be heard on the next village for another talking drummer who will pick the tone, the message of the talking drums to also drum the same beat. Before you realize, people are gravitating towards the original source of the drums. For example, they're not going to speak that there is that. No, they play phrases. Eja shring, 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 eja shring, 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 mumra, mumra, mumra. You can hear, in fact, if you observe a master talking drummer drumming, without you even understand the language of Akan, which is tree, you could easily tell that this drummer is carrying messages. This drummer is carrying messages. if a king, for example, is in his chambers and there are visitors, the talking drum would call the king that you have visitors. Sometimes he would even warn the king, don't come out because I see this as belligerent visitors. Maybe pass through the back door and scatter. But how did we get the talking drums? When Europeans came to meet Africans, in this case Akan people, they could not understand that on playing a particular phrase or phrases on drums, people will respond accordingly. That is why they name it talking drums. The drum itself is called atumpine, and it's called atumpine because if you look at talking drums, it's shaped like a bottle, like a beer bottle. I love beer, so that's why I'm giving that example. Oh, no, Pastor is here. No, I'm sorry. It's shaped like a beer bottle, so the drums is like an inverted bottle. So it's called atumpine, which is like bottles. But Europeans named it talking drums, which is okay because it talks. But you know what is so fascinating is that it's not that it only gives messages and appellations and accolades to a king, but it plays important role. In fact, the master talking drummer is among the few who can tell it like it is to the king. Besides the queen mother and Ochiami, who is the spokesperson, or they say the linguist, the master talking drummer is amongst the few who can tell it like it is to the king on his drums. He can tell the king, he can warn the king, he can tell the king that you are behaving like a child. So watch your language. He can tell him all that. And the reasons are not far-fetched. Drumming in palaces is voluntary. They do it on voluntary basis and they become heredity. If I know how to drum, my son or nephew will naturally also know how to drum. So if I'm dead and gone or I'm old, they naturally go to continue my services. They are only given token gift. And at festivals, that is where you see the mastery of drums. If a drummer at a festival, because they are not paid, they will see who asked the question, okay, Professor Akan passing, and they know he's a rich cocoa farmer, the drummer will call him on the drums. Like Kwame Akan, he will keep drumming. If he didn't hear, someone will tell him, the drummer is calling you. The moment he turns, he said, Bra, come. So Bra, he'll drum it as a bring something. And you will know. Then you go and give him a token, money or whatever, drinks. Or if when they have a complete ensemble of the talking drums from, these drummers speak amongst themselves. They really talk amongst themselves whilst drumming. For example, if a king is coming from afar and they've been drumming for a while, sometimes they go astray. One of them will go astray. Let's assume, but not taking into consideration that the talking drummer goes astray. Or the from drummer goes astray. All the time, the talking drummer, who is the lead drummer, is in front. So he sees the king coming, and he will start to alert the from drummer, who is now going beating off beat, will call his attention. And he said, he will call him several times. Oduma kuma chirema. That is divine drummer. He will keep repeating that till the from drummer becomes aware that he's being called. Then the from drummer with his big drums will respond. Kasa, boom, boom. Maybe the talking drummer would think that he played that coincidentally. So now he will again repeat. Oduma kuma chirema, bori means creator. Oduma divine drummer, bori drummer. Then he will respond like the from drummer will say, kasa. Then the talking drummer farmer will throw his head in the air. He's happy now that his attention has been sought. Then he will play something like abetia kuntum kuntum abetia kuntum kuntum abetia kuntum kuntum ebu emu okuyafo yem she. Then you hear the front of the. What it means is that the king is now being given the accolade of abetin, which is the very tall stoop palm tree. For the farmer, if they are clearing their farm and it's windy, he will just read 1, 2 and look up, fearing that the tall stoop palm tree could fall on him anytime. So he will look up and he'll go down again weeping. They are now comparing the king to that tall stoop tree because the presence of the king now is a cause for occasion. It's an occasion for happiness, or it could also be an occasion for misery for someone. Why? Maybe someone may jump into the crowd and dance a dance, gesticulating with his hands what he's not supposed to do to the king. Because there are some dances you cannot dance in front of kings, as demonstrated by dancers. You cannot stretch your hands forward, backwards, leftward, rightward, and then bring your two hands onto your chest. What you are telling the king is that north, south, east, and west, they all belong to me. But this is always the king who is the monarch of all what he surveys. So if you get into the public domain and start to do that kind of dance, you'll be caught right there, you'll be arrested, and you could face big problem. In the olden days, you could buy with your head. So the king's appearance at a festival is an occasion to celebrate and also could be an occasion of misery to someone. So you see, the drum and drummers has been part of the culture, and it's so beautiful. It takes so long. Through my cultural teacher, Ochiame Kufu, I can understand some languages. I try learning how to play, but anytime I hit the drum, the stick would just jump off my hand. So I gave up. So that is but we treated it in details in the book.
Yeah.
Why the history of how the talking drums came about, and even all these master drummers have totems, symbolic totems, and they have their own greetings and so on and so forth.
Right. Yeah, you have a very rich, detailed section on that, so that's something that I think is worth reading. Unless our other guests have anything else to add to the talking drum issue, I might want to follow up. Anybody else on the line that would like to say something?
Not on the talking issue, but
not on the talking drums. Okay, so Kofi, let me just follow up and let me just try and make it very brief. So there's also this perception that, usually Africans generally, we are so consumed with drumming and dancing, and that's all we do. I mean, of course, if you extend that idea, it's about partying rather than anything else. I mean, when the heads of states come to Africa, we meet them. We meet them at the airports with drumming and dancing. I mean, is there any negative aspect to some of these cultural traditions in a sense? Because of course, culture has to be dynamic. I'm just trying to push you a little bit here, and then maybe as you're trying to answer that question, you might also want to answer this question as well. If you had to do a second edition of your book, what would you include?
Well, to the first one, to the uninitiated and the ignorance, to them there is all the time this negativity attached to, the phrase like all what Africans do is just drumming and dancing. We're not talking about high life dancing or this sort of, disco type of dancing. No. Traditional dancing have meanings, and special dances are done on special occasions. And if the African, in this case, their dancing concept is deeply an Akan priest or priestess come into a public place to dance, the first thing the priest or priestess does is to, like Professor Small said in the libation, raise the two hands up in the air, getting permission and giving praise to the Almighty God. After that, then the two hands go down. The same thing to Mother Earth. And then they move the right leg first. And then do this specific dancing with hand. And let's say at a funeral, a real big funeral for a very important person, of course they will dance. But sometimes you see them dancing maybe with pepper in between their mouths. And of course, the ignorant European would never understand. The pepper is symbols that the person who is doing the dance or the pepper in between is pained by the death of a loved one. Sometimes you see grass, and I know Professor Small have seen this plenty of times because I have a video of when you went to, you and Nana Dinizulu and Brother Jimmy went to this homecoming, the video there that you went to this place and the king was coming with a pepper. I have the video, so I know you've seen it plenty of times. You know Ghana more than I do anyway. And sometimes you see just common grass on the elbow tied onto a string on an elbow or in between the lips. What it signifies is that the dead person is the one who used to feed me. And now that he or she is gone, I'm going to eat grass. There is nothing for me to eat. I'm empty. And then they will dance accordingly. And you see, our dancing is an extension, a practical extension of Egyptian hieroglyphics. The written Egyptian hieroglyphics are portrayed in so many aspects of the African culture, including the symbols that we see on the Dinkra cloth and the sandals, Ahinma, and the stools, so many things. But when it comes to dancing too, our hand, our legs, the head, movement, if you look at the dancing like, what is it? Oh, I've forgotten this name of a dance. I've forgotten, but I will describe it. You go to maybe some kings in the olden days, kings will go on a festival. Maybe they have a feud already. Two kings are feuding. One will get on the podium. No, not on the podium. On the public place and dance. In the course of the dancing, he ends it with the right foot, making like a rectangle, top, side, bottom, side, and stamp on it 3 times. What he's telling the king sitting down there is that I've cut your grave now. I'm going to bury you in that grave. They will finish the festival and there will be war the following day. Because he has challenged that king to war. What's the name of the dance? I think it's Fonton From. I believe it's Fonton From dance. See, and even amongst Fonton From, they have women Fonton From and men Fonton From. So like I said, yes, of course, if you are ignorant, you think there are negativity amongst them. But if you are initiated or you are aware of this, then you know the deep-seated meaning of that.
Exactly why they should read your book, right? Listeners should read your book.
And the second question, if I'm to add, if I'm to do a second edition, well, I've had few, reviews. Some of them from my mentor, Ochiame Kufu, who eventually read the whole book. He'd added some more things, and we know we could all the time improve upon it. Whether I'm going to do it, I'm not sure. You also did some part of the editing, Prof. If I do it and you are ready to go through that headache, yes, then sure, we could do it. Unless you promise on air.
No, I'm here for you. You know that. Anyway, let our guest also chime in. Professor Smalls, are you still there? Or he's left?
No, Professor Small is there. We see his number, but I don't know whether he's
still around.
Well, Sadiq knows. Sadiq, you go ahead.
Yeah, Professor Small is still here. I mean, it's just marvelous. I've been more educated by this program, the explanations. I mean, it adds up to what I've had from the book itself. So I'm not sure if we do have any other new calls. I don't see any new calls. So maybe
I would like to chime in today.
Sure.
I think
Mambo.
it's absolutely important that this book is coming out right now because more and more people are being, as the term on the street is, woke. They're waking up to a lot of the misconceptions that have been passed along on African culture and Africans globally. So this information comes at the right time because there's a thirst and a desire for African people to know really who they are from their culture, from a cultural perspective, because a lot of us, even some of us born in Africa and raised in Africa, we've been far removed from what our customs and our cultures have been, either through religion or through trying to assimilate with what we call civilized, quote unquote, society. And we're finding more and more that it's not really speaking to who we are as people. So we need to we like the drive to want to get that information is to reestablish ourselves as leaders in the world and also like people that contributed to what this world is right now, whether it's through our customs, whether it's through just outright like contributing to what this society has become. It's very important that we have a book like this at this time, at this junction, because it will give people the truth of what Akan culture is. And I'm sure the book, it doesn't cover everything, but it's a great start, and it's going to help push people to want to go to Ghana and find out more.
Sadiq.
Thank you very much, Mamo. Yes.
As we are getting close to the end, if you give me like 2 minutes to say something.
Sure.
So, can I?
Yeah, you can, please.
Okay. What I like, and I'll urge all those who might be interested to get a book from Amazon.com, or if you come to me, I guarantee that you get it from me. I sign it, and you are guaranteed. You read it, and I'm saying it on there. I've said it several times. The other time I was at People's Organization for Progress, and I said it. You read it, you don't like it, you get your money back from me. That is if you get the money from you. That's a guarantee. Yes. And if you get a book and you're not even reading it, go to Appendix 5. That's the last appendix. And I just want to bring people's attention a little bit about contemporary Akan names with ancient Egyptian origin. And the meanings are there. In ancient Egypt, there was a name called Asar, A-S-A-R. And the Akan equivalent is Asare. And the Akan have Yi, A-S-A-R-E. Ancient Egyptians don't have the E. And ancient Egypt, they had a name called Inti, which means out of. The Akan people have Inti. They had a name called Sefa, which means inundation. And Akan also have Sefa. In ancient Egypt, there was also Amenu, which meant to come, or the coming one. And Akan, the Kuriapin people have Amenu. They had Kuti. Akan, Kuti Achampon. Akan people have Kuti. They also had this, which is Gan, but I put it there anyway, Nu. And the meaning of the ancient Egyptian word for Nu means celestial water, god of inundation, which is Gan for water. And they had Khufu, which and the meaning was a pharaoh of the fourth dynasty. We have a Khufu. Ancient Egypt also had Enima, a name which meant breath of life. Akan people still do Enima, the name. They had Amma, abode of peace in the spiritual world, and Amma is a common name. They have Menu, which is of the earth, mount. We also have Menu. They have Tutu. Tutu means the son of the mother's ancestral spirit. Akan people have Tutu. Ancient Egypt had what we call Ka, K-A, which is the soul, the force of life. Akan has Kra, K-R-A. Ancient Egypt had Nana, which meant great mother. Akan have Nana, which one meaning is the same. Mena in ancient Egypt means mystical woman. And our older generation will call mother Mena. And Tete, the meaning in ancient Egypt means to stand fixed to the ground. Akan people have Tete. The Akan Christians will say Tete Botan, that is ancient stone. They had also Saka, which is spiritual god of the cemetery. Akan people have Saka. Then Akenante, we discussed already. And then they have Asafo. Asafo was a town in Lower Egypt. And then Asafo, well, we have Kumasi Asafo, Achima Asafo. And then listen here now. The ancient Egypt had a town called Manfi. And you know what Manfi was? The Egyptian name of Memphis was called Manfi. And in Ghana here, we have Manfi, which is a town in Equiapim. They also had a town called Tapa. The Europeans named it Luxor, or formerly it was Thebes. We have Tapa in Brongahafu. They have Aso, and they have one ancient Egyptian word called Hawari, which meant the Egyptian name of Ayaris, a city in the Delta. And what's the meaning? Hawari means this place is far. And in Akan, Hawari means Ahawari, this place is far. Last but not the least, I jumped actually. They had a pharaoh called Kakai, okay? And his throne name was Kakai. He was a pharaoh of the 5th dynasty. And in the Akan concept of a Kakai is a very mythical, ugly, and fearsome person, and so on and so forth. Go get a book. Thank you.
Would that be your closing remarks?
Well, I'm done. Unless someone has a question. I'm done for 2 hours. Unless someone has a question.
That was a perfect dramatic ending.
Thank you for the book, Kofi.
Yes. Thank you, Brother Kofi. Wonderful.
You're all welcome.
And thank you all for coming on. We appreciate it. For all your
Thank
time.
you.
Appreciate it.
Now, Brother Kofi,
yes.
a little confusion. I usually close the program as a producer. I'm hosting today with Professor Kwame Akono. Who closes for us?
The producer is in Ghana now, Bella. I don't know whether she's listening, so maybe you might have to do your own thing. And she's listening because she sent a text and said, let's skip the ads. Because we are supposed to go for commercial breaks 2 times. I think she was listening to the flow and she sent a message that so maybe you might have to do that yourself or Prof. I'm just a guest today, so I can do it.
No, Sadiq, continue doing the tradition. Go ahead.
All right.
Thank you so much. If you can hear me, this is Sophie. Thank you so much for the wonderful book, and I can't wait to read it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie.
Well, this is an exciting moment for me because I get to play 2 roles, but most especially because I have learned more than probably I have done in reading about 1,000 books. I want to use this opportunity to thank you, Brother Kofi. 1, for writing such a masterpiece. 2, for doing it just for the sake of giving education. I'm not sure how much you've made out of this, but I know it's not the money that was most important to you. It's the opportunity for others to learn and know who they are, so they will know where they're going I do show gratitude to you and every single person who is on air with us today. Professor James Small, always a pleasure hearing you and learning from you. Reverend from the church, Reverend Lucato, thank you very much for being here with us. Mambo, Professor Kwame Akono, Dr. Sami Tobafo, and everyone who has been here with us today. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for spending this time enlightening each other and looking forward to what we will do together collectively to uplift the spirit of the black people around the world. I must emphasize here that I know a lot of Africans do look back at what the West has done in terms of technology and what do you call it, all these so-called civilization, and ask the question, if Africa was that great, why didn't it do what these people have done? Let me give you one quick answer. Technology hasn't changed our lives in any positive way. It has taken away from us what we did not want to take away from it. And we are all suffering the consequences. And because it's a sweet poison, we are all dying with it. So on that note, I would say thank you all. And we hope to hear from you and be with you next week. You all take care. Have a good weekend.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thanks, y'all.
Much. Bye-bye.